Oh, we're good. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker for fantasy excellence, making all your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, and we are in our speed. This is the speed show. This is the one where we're trying to hustle, get done as close to kickoff as possible, and we're playing with like half an hour. 35 minutes, something like that. The last game just ended. We got to see two undefeated teams lose to two teams that were just absolutely massive underdogs. Real shocker. Eagles turned it over 5 times and just fell to the Jets. And, of course, the Browns knocked off the 49ers earlier. Wolf, how you doing? You ready?
Yeah, let's dive right in. As you said, we got no time to waste. We're going to hit all our risers, fallers, injuries. We're going to try a new format tonight where we go position by position as well, see if that helps it flow quicker. Of course, we're trying to get you all the good stuff without skimping as well. And we'll have our early recap. We've got the 4 p.m. games just kind of wrapping up as you were hinting at. So we don't have exact snap counts and complete and utter usage from there, but we'll hit as many snap counts and interesting things from the 1 p.m.s. And then we'll scan those box scores real fast and then hit you with the early week 7 waiver wire, ideally in 30 minutes or less. Let's dive in. Huh?
Right. And like we said before, we got a Sunday night football game, and it figures to be a real massacre. So we still want to try to get you there on time, but I don't have a lot of hope for the Giants.
No.
All right, let's get right into it. We're, like Wolf said, we're going by position, so we're going to start quarterback. The obvious guy to start with is probably Tua. He completed 21 out of 31 for 262 and 3 touchdowns in their Week 6 win against the hapless Panthers. Probably could have had more than that. Sat a lot of the fourth quarter, which I was happy to see as a Tua owner and just a decent human being, because obviously, like, the guy should, if the game's out of hand, get him off the field. He could have had even more points than he did. I think he ended up scoring 28 fantasy points for me. But, I mean, he looked really good. What can I say? And the Dolphins offense rolls as we all expected it to.
Yeah, he really was just a low-scoring quarterback day in general, too. So Tua might end up being the high scorer of the week, while you said only playing 3 quarters. Really just impressive offense. It continues to just steamroll at levels that we have not really seen very often. Jared Goff also steamrolling, 353 yards, 2 scores. Now David Montgomery a bit banged up. When we get to injuries, we'll dive in a bit more, but they might need to lean on Goff even heavier. He just looks great. So poised. This is his team. This is his offense. They love him there. Love to see it for him.
Just going back to the comment on Tua maybe being the highest scoring quarterback of the week, don't sleep on Josh Allen.
Until Josh Allen murders. That's a fair point.
So far, though, I think he's in the clubhouse with the lead. Desmond Ridder had a pretty good game, too. Yeah, you didn't hear me wrong. That's Desmond Ridder getting a shout-out in the Risers Studs category. 28 out of 47 for 307, 2 touchdowns, and to go along with 3 picks in their 24-16 loss to the Commanders. 3 interceptions is never a great look, but if you look at just the overall fantasy production, he actually is a pretty good fantasy game for a quarterback, especially this week.
Yeah, he's the 4th highest scorer quarterback as of now, with the Eagles game wrapping up. Jalen Hurts did come in second, but only 22 points on DraftKings, at least for Jalen Hurts. So no real blow-away performance. Jared Goff was the QB leader. Tua was second. Desmond Ridder 4th on that list. And the only other notable guy, I guess, is Derek Carr. He did get benefited from that 300-yard bonus on DraftKings, 20 DK points for him. But still just kind of mediocre. Just good to see him, though, slinging the ball a bit more. On to fallers at the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins. Without Justin Jefferson, you'd think that maybe this offense would stay afloat and continue to pepper. In just one game, we don't want to freak out, but 181 yards, just 1 score. Very mediocre day, especially when you add in a mixed lost fumble there. So tough day without his main guy, and we'll talk about the wide receivers when we get there and the pass catchers who really ate up the work. Nobody. It just was much more vacant, not the offense that we've come to expect. And, of course, you don't think they're going to be as high-powered with Jefferson as they were with and without him. But ultimately, just a tough performance from this Vikings team.
And we're going to take the other side in that game that you were just referencing with the Vikings. I wrote a scathing article saying get rid of Justin Fields when he had that good game like 2 weeks ago. Then he had an even better game just about the next week. And now he came back, and now he's the Justin Fields that I was writing about. He went 6 for 10, 58 yards, and a pick. He also ran 8 times for 46 yards. Now, he did get injured in the third quarter, but I mean, he was doing nothing, and it was against a Vikings defense that's really been pretty terrible this year. So pretty unimpressive on both sides of the ball in that game.
Yeah, I was expecting a real big shootout. We did not get it. Sorry, Chillard, if you're tuned in right now. He asked me for my highest over-under that I felt most confident. I thought 44.5 was a smash with two of these offenses peaking. Obviously, Justin Jefferson going up. I figured they could still maintain court here with bad defenses, and no, we got nothing there. Just awful on both sides of the ball. And as you said, he did get hurt, Justin Fields. So you don't want to ever be like, oh, he's a follow just because he looked. It just didn't look good.
No, he was bad when he was in.
It was that worry that turned into the pump we saw earlier.
58 yards passing in the third quarter.
Yeah, not good. Not good. Not good for Brock Purdy either. Just 12 of 27, under 50% of his passes, 125 yards and 1 touchdown, a pick. Just gross. 3 carries for 7 yards as well. Really missed McCaffrey there down the stretch. Yes, it's a good Browns defense, but this was the worst we've ever seen Brock Purdy look other than that playoff game where he didn't have an elbow. So definitely a concerning performance for him. But I imagine they get it right back on track. I'm not overly concerned with this one.
Everybody was kind of missing for the Niners. I mean, their kicker missed a field goal, and he hadn't missed
one.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean,
one of the craziest upsets. And then the Jets game, like you said, what a wild Sunday of football. Insane.
Those are the games those are the scores of games when stuff like that happens. It was 19-17 in the Browns-Niners game, 14-12 in the Jets-Eagles game, or 18-14 or something like that. Anyway, right. Joe Burrow, he was underwhelming, and it says right here, underwhelming but looked mobile. And it's funny, I had exactly the same thought when I watched him. He went 24 out of 35 for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. They did win in an ugly game. All these scores are the same, 17-13 over the Seahawks. I thought this one would be much more high scoring also. But I specifically remember a play. I think it was in the third quarter or something. He got flushed out of the pocket. He ran all over the place, like evading people, and then he completed like a 3-yard pass or something. But it was a
Drew Campbell. I remember the exact play. Like that was the least exciting cap off to the best we've seen Burrow moving around the pocket. Yeah. So yeah, I think you summarized it perfect. Not a great statistical day, but good to see him moving around that way. Better days are ahead. Just good to see him. Says he's felt as healthy as he ever has this year. It's good to see that actually play out, despite the stats not necessarily matching it yet. Yeah. Eyeball test was passed for that sense. Baker Mayfield, 206 scoreless yards and a pick. One of the worst performances we've seen out of him. He kind of crumbled in back-to-back days against the Eagles. And the only couple big tests they've had, they've failed. But still an impressive Bucs team overall on the year. But definitely a lackluster day for this passing attack.
Randing out the fallers and quarterbacks, and I don't even know. We can't really – I don't really think this guy could fall any further. But 24 out of 33 for 200 yards and a pick in the Patriots, 21-17, week 6 loss to the Raiders. They are terrible, and he is terrible, and I don't have anything else to say about it. Anything else would just be twisting the knife. You got anything to add?
I think it's a good point. He had nowhere further to fall. I just imagine we're not even going to see him next week. I think it's time for the bench. We'll see Malik Cunningham or Will Greer or something else for this Patriots team.
Is this the worst?
He had bad drops around him. We should have won that game, so I don't want to sit here and say it's all Mac's fault. It wasn't. But it's dysfunction. It's time to just clean house and just and move forward.
I don't want to dump on him for this either, but I mean, it was just it's just really bad. Is this the worst Patriots team in your life?
It's up there. Yeah, it's certainly up there. I've been very spoiled as a Pats fan, so yeah.
I remember like some years probably when you were like 3 years old or something, when they were like 1-15, got stuff like that, when their coach was Dick McPherson or whatever.
Yeah, right.
They were awful, but this is the worst team I've seen of theirs, and certainly since well before Brady.
Right, exactly. So most of my football life was Brady. Even before that was Bledsoe, which wasn't so bad. So yeah, this is as pathetic as I've seen. In terms of injuries at the quarterback position, Justin Fields, as we mentioned, he was stinking it up anyways, but then did head into the locker room. X-rays were negative on his hand. So he's going to get an MRI on Monday to see if there's any other damage. But hopefully it sounds like at least he avoided broken bones. We don't know if ligaments will be intact. I think everything should be okay there, though. And then Jimmy Garoppolo did not return against the Patriots. It was a back injury. He's just been getting kind of slammed all over the place. This is his second injury of the year. Hoyer did come in, filled in admirably, 162 yards, a touchdown, 1 pick as well, but looked okay. It was interesting they went to Hoyer and not O'Connell, who had started that previous game. I figured the rookie might get another burn, but no, they wanted to give Hoyer the revenge game, I guess.
Yeah, I heard Jimmy G actually went to the hospital. So
did he? Wow. Okay, I didn't realize it was that serious.
I saw that headline. I didn't click on the article, but I mean, it sounds like he got messed up pretty good.
Wow.
Pretty bad. All right, let's talk about running backs, risers/studs. I mean, this is the highest fantasy score of the week, and it's just this Dolphins offense just churns them out. Raheem Mostert filling in quite capably for Devon Achane, who was out for, I think it's going to be 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Mostert gets the nod. He played well behind Achane last week, but this week he 17 rushes, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 3 catches for another 17 and another touchdown. And he got, we talked a little bit about, Jeff Wilson's back, goal line work, whatever. I was not worried. They gave it to Mostert on the goal line multiple times when they could have gone to Wilson, and he did punch it in. So just absolutely, great game for Mostert. Best game anybody had all week. They've proved they can plug and play. You actually commented their backup, Ahmed, also managed to score a touchdown during garbage time in the fourth quarter. So if you play running back for the Dolphins, except not Jeff Wilson so far, you're going to eat.
Well, Jeff Wilson was inactive today, Truth. So we don't want to too much here. Have body pillow. Come on down. He did not end up playing.
I thought I saw him on the field.
So no, Wilson did not play today. He ended up
not bad. I thought I saw him on the field.
So we will see when he comes back. But indeed, it was definitely the Mostert show today. And as you mentioned, still another 10 points, 11 points for Ahmed. He was a guy I hyped up as a sleeper, so not bad. He ended up pulling through for you guys if you use Salvin Ahmed today. But yeah, Mostert was the absolute show. 41 of the 67 snaps. Him and Ahmed did run similar routes. It does make you wonder, is Ahmed worth a waiver wire stab? Probably not. I do think Jeff Wilson will be back, and this is why you have to hold on to Jeff Wilson. I wrote about Ahmed and just the backfield as a whole coming into the week, Truth, and they had the 12th most carries in the league, but the most yards, most rushing touchdowns, most yards per carry. It is the most fertile run environment that is possibly out there. So yes, whether it's Mostert, Jeff Wilson, if Salvin Ahmed is ever making starts, any piece of this backfield, welcome. And it sounds like Achane will be back after his 4 weeks. It's not going to be something that lingers, was the latest report there. So if you can somehow buy low, or if that owner is struggling and needs something and you can go get Achane, man, you're going to have yourself a league winner come your stretch run should he stay healthy. Travis Etienne, just another game, 4 touchdowns now across his last 2 weeks, 55 yards, 2 scores. Not a huge day efficiency-wise because it was 18 carries just for 55 yards, but did have 3 catches for 28. Looks explosive, looks more decisive. Etienne has definitely been the Duck could feed us some crow on this one, Truth. I remember me, you, and Mo. We piled on the Duck, and he is emerging victorious here. So if you're listening, Duck, shout out to you. You were definitely right on Etienne. He is the man in this backfield and should have been a early second rounder at latest.
Yeah, he was. I admit it. Chuba Hubbard, 19 rushes for 88 yards and a touchdown. He also had a catch for 2 yards. Usually their starters, Miles Sanders. He's been out. This is better than pretty much anything Miles Sanders has put up. Yeah, and he outsnapped Raheem Blackshear, who was the only other running back seeing any time. He outsnapped him 5-1. So I don't know. It may be encouraging, but I mean, Carolina's gross all around, but this is actually encouraging. If you're looking in a running back light league, you could do a lot worse than Chuba Hubbard right now.
Yeah, you got to wonder if they keep the keys in Chuba Hubbard's hand after this was, like you said, better than anything we've seen out of Miles Sanders. This is the 3rd-year trend now of him getting significantly more efficient and just looking better eyeball test-wise in 3 straight years. I was really impressed with what Chuba Hubbard was doing, and there was a worry Blackshear might get the 3rd down touches and make this more of a commitment. No, 27 of the 42 routes went to Chuba Hubbard. Like you said, 53 of the 68 snaps as well for Chuba Hubbard. He was a dominant 80% touch, 80% snap, dominant workload. So if we get Miles Sanders out again, Chuba Hubbard a high end. I had him at running back 27 spots above the ECR. Feeling pretty good about that one. Ended up panning out pretty big. Alvin Kamara, another one of those days where just looked mad, but it's hard not to put him on the riser list because he just gets so much work. 19 carries, 68 yards. Nothing great or impressive with that, but also another 8 targets, 7 catches for 36 yards. In terms of expected fantasy points, he now leads the NFL since returning. In expected fantasy points, he's underperforming that because he doesn't look. I was hopeful for a more explosive Kamara after all the training camp reports was he's got his speed back. He doesn't look quite as bad as he did last year, but this is not the Kamara of old. The role is still very valuable, though, and he's putting up decent fantasy numbers because the volume is just monstrous.
This is a kind of gross running back situation here.
Yeah.
Alex Madison dominated the workload in the Minnesota backfield, but I mean, he did that rushing 18 times for 44 yards. That's less than 2.5 yards a carry. He also added 4 catches for 28 yards. He was second on the team in targets. This seems more like a commentary on just how awful they were, but he did dominate the workload and the snap count and everything else. Cam Akers rushed once for 8 yards, so that was not too exciting. Although his yards per carry was like 3 times higher than Madison's, so I don't know. Maybe they should have given it to him a couple more times. But yeah, we talked about the Vikings and how bad they stunk up the joint. That was passing game and running game. So
yeah. It was just a matter of it had been getting closer and closer to a 60-40 last week. It seemed like Akers was earning more and more work, and he's always looked better than Madison ever since he's been on this team. He's been much more efficient. Was again today, even though it was just 2 touches. But ultimately, Madison was much more entrenched as that starter, 45 of 57 snaps, 20 of the 33 routes. He was pretty much the every down back. I still think Akers, though, despite this discouraging usage, he just, again, passes the eyeball test more. This is I want to say a high-powered offense, but without Jefferson, man, like you said, this was a definite downgrade overall as a unit, but Madison seemed to be that workhorse. Tough to figure out what's going on here with this Cleveland backfield.
I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, 17 carries, 84 yards for Ford. Looked really good, too. I mean,
that's 5 yards a carry.
Bags against one of the best run defenses. I saw some cuts out there. I said, well, this kid's impressive. I really like what you're watching him run. 2 catches, 7 yards as well. But the workload was definitely closer to a 50-50 here. Kareem Hunt also looking really good. 12 carries, 47 yards, and a touchdown. And again, against the 49ers, this is no joke of a defense. And he also had 3 catches for 24 yards and seemed to get more of the short yardage work. Ford was the primary third down back, got more of those snaps, but Kareem Hunt did get 3 of the 4 short yardage snaps there. Third downs did, again, get dominated by Jerome Ford, 8 of the 12 snaps there, so 75% going to him. But certainly more involvement from Hunt. It kind of became a thing where Hunt and Pierre Strong were about like 40% of the work combined, and then Ford was 60% before. Now it just was Hunt was like 40, Ford was 60. So a little bit more clear-cut roles. It makes Hunt, who got dropped in a lot of leagues, intriguing, especially again because he's got that short yardage role. That does put a little bit of a thorn into Ford's side if he's not going to get those goal line looks, those touchdowns, because he had scored some decent amount there. Looks like Hunt's back in that role, and he was rumbling. I don't know. Did you see much of that game? Like Hunt kind of had a couple powerful runs there.
Hunt looked good, but I mean, I thought Ford looked really good too. I think I'm a Ford owner. I was one of the people that blew all my money that week to get him. It was, he was the flavor of the week that week, and I got him, and I don't feel bad about it. I mean, he's good. He's a starting running back on most people's fantasy teams, even now, even sharing the workload.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Brian Robinson. He rushed 10 times for 31 yards. This was another gross game, the Commanders and the Falcons. He did add two catches for 25 and a touchdown. He did score on a 24-yard screen pass. Other than that, he pretty much did nothing. He's rushed for 45 yards or less in 3 straight games. And, we were high on him for a little while. He has really stunk up the joint recently.
Yeah, he was supposed to be on the meh guys. Not a meh guy, though. Ken Walker was 19 carries, 62 yards. So I guess a meh in terms of efficiency, but yet another touchdown. That's now, I believe, his 6th score on the season. 4th touchdown from the 1-yard line. He has been a rock solid, 5th, 6th rounder. We've dealing with that rib injury in camp. One of the better values in the league, and especially 56 of the 73 snaps, dominating the work, more involved in the passing game as well. 27 routes. That was a season high, well over 50% of the routes. This is an every down back in an offense that's towards the top half of the league and certainly likes to give him cap-off chances. So great game there for Ken Walker, and certainly great involvement and role as well.
You got Kyron Williams here. Do you want to talk about his 4 p.m. game? I don't know his numbers.
We'll do a 4 p.m. box score scan at the end of everything like we always do.
All right.
So,
well, let's get into the Colts then. Their running backs actually had a pretty close to even split in the backfield. Jonathan Taylor, who played 33 out of the 78 snaps, I believe. He rushed 8 times for 19 yards. That's gross. Adding 5 catches for 46. I think the one really good play he had a catch for like 20 yards or something like that. It did not look impressive. I have to say, Zach Moss rushed 7 times for 21 yards, which is only marginally better. He also had a touchdown. They lost that game to the Jags. This was another one of those, just like, these games all kind of the same. They were all just like low scoring, like no one did much games. He did add 6 catches for 38 yards. And it says here, obviously, he scored the touchdown. It's great, but there's no denying that his role took a huge hit with the return of Taylor. Moss was dominating the backfield, and now he's basically 50-50 sharing time. But neither one of them really did much. It seems like one of them could still win the backfield if they did something.
Exactly. You got to imagine the money, all that will eventually favor Taylor, and they will turn over the keys to the pass track record. Moss is making it hard, though. He is clinging to this role. He's still really efficient. He scored that touchdown, looking good as a receiver. I think the big reason why he ended up out-snapping Taylor today, only by 5, though, much closer margin than last week when it was nearly 80% Moss yet again. But the reason why it was 2-minute drill is where we really saw Moss dominate, and that kind of makes sense. He's been with the team longer. He has more familiarity with when they're really putting that no-huddle offense out there. I do imagine Taylor will eventually get worked in, and just encouraging to see how involved both of these guys were as pass catchers. That probably wouldn't have been the case with Anthony Richardson, and even though I like Richardson as a whole for this offense, the backs probably benefit probably pretty big time here when you're not getting that vulture of Anthony Richardson plus the dump-offs from Gardner Minshew. He really targeted the position heavily today. Both Patriots running backs, another just mess, interesting, like it's not really a riser or faller. Just kind of wanted to note that both of them scored touchdowns. Ramondre had 10 carries for 46 and a score, 24 yards on 5 catches. An okay day for him. The best day we've really seen from him in a while. Goes to kind of show you how bad his season's been. And then Zeke, 7 carries, 34 yards, and a score as well. He did have a 75-yarder called back. So ultimately, that was disappointing for him. His stats could have looked a whole lot better.
We go to the fallers section, and we did one of the ones I said
Robinson already.
Probably should have been in the fallers section. But anyway, fallers studs, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. They both ran the ball 13 times. Bijan got 37 yards out of it. He did add 5 catches for 43. Algier rushed for his 13 times. He got 51 yards. What was interesting is that they tried several times to punch the ball in from short yardage with Algier, and he never made it. Neither one of them looked too good. I mean, Algier has been referred to a bunch of times as a thorn in the side of Bijan Robinson owners. I would say that is an apt description, although, like I said, neither one of them did much.
Yeah, just annoying to see how Algier continues to be involved, especially at the stripe, like you alluded to. Bijan, though, saving his value with the receiving role, no Patterson at least getting mixed in. Then it could have got real ugly. It seems like that we don't have to worry about anymore. Still, though, you'd love to see him get a few stabs at the goal line, especially with Algier struggling there right now. Joe Mixon, another day with almost all the snaps and another day with ho-hum production. He was our lower of the week, and it's kind of what we expected. 12 carries, 38 yards, 3 catches, 24 yards. Just a day. It's just nothing good about Joe Mixon right now, even though he's a dominant workhorse in an offense that seems to be ascending. I still think he's an intriguing buy low. They'll have the buy this week. Burrow gets fully healthy in my mind, and maybe they come out of the bye firing on all cylinders, and it is still an expected role. It's one of the best in the leagues. He's just not doing much with it. I don't know that he will, but I don't know that you have to pay much to get him either way.
The Bears running backs did about what I assumed they would do, which is nothing. Deontay Foreman, 15 rushes, 65 yards, 1 catch for 2 yards. Darrynton Evans, who was their change of pace back, rushed 9 times for 32, and he also had a whopping 1 reception for a whopping 2 yards. Not a whole lot else to say.
No, not much there. Ultimately, it just kind of goes to show when Roschon comes back, the door should be wide open for him to take back over this backfield while Khalil Herbert is on the IR as he got moved to earlier this week. And then Keaton Mitchell, the guy we want everyone to stash, the speed, the lightning, doesn't get a single touch, doesn't see the field today in London for the Ravens. I still, if you have the space, you could hold and see if this gets into fruition. But at this point, they seem very satisfied with Edwards and Hill, even though it's a gross committee. It doesn't, I don't know. We'll see with Keaton Mitchell. If he can hold one more week and see if this is the first time he was potentially going to be activated. He's still an undrafted free agent, though. I don't know that he's ever going to get forced onto the field, even though we all want to see him because he looked so good in the preseason. He's the 3rd fastest 40. I get all that. But at the end of the day, if he's not going to get on the field, it doesn't matter. You don't want to burn a roster spot too much longer on it. I personally cut him so I can move Tank Dell to my IR and pick up somebody to stream myself. So you can drop Keaton Mitchell at this point. The dream seems over.
Consider him dropped. Although, thank you for like the 35,000 clicks we got.
Seriously.
We appreciate it. The Bucs running backs also stink. Rashad White rushed 7 times for 26 yards, caught 3 balls for 12 yards. That was no good, of course. Now, I mean, the Bucs scored 6 points. So, obviously nobody really did anything. But, running backs were a real dud this week.
Horrible. And in terms of injuries, David Montgomery left in the game in the second quarter. Rib injury, did not come back to the game. Certainly something to monitor. He fell on the ball. Looked pretty awkward when that happened. Not great at all. And then the big one, of course, though, is Christian McCaffrey. Oblique injury, did not return to the game against the Browns. He tried to re-enter, then left again, went to the locker room and cleared discomfort. I would be shocked if he doesn't rest for at least a game or two. So Craig Reynolds for the Lions situation. Of course, Jordan Mason looks like he will probably be the blow-it-all type of waiver wire pick, depending on what this injury looks like for Christian McCaffrey. Certainly something to monitor. We're about to head to wide receivers, Wolfpack. As we get over there, please do consider that thumbs up button. It really does help us. It gets out to more people. If you're new around here, consider subscribing to the channel as we make that climb to 5K. Would love to hit it this year, and you guys have been great so far. So we'd love to have more and more of you with us. On to wide receivers.
Wide receivers, the timeless Adam Thielen, 11 balls on 13 targets, 115 yards and a touchdown in that ugly Week 6 loss against the Dolphins that we alluded to before. I mean, he's another guy who's just completely unsexy, and he has been forever. He's always been unsexy, but the guy's a really, really good NFL professional receiver. He catches tons of touchdowns, and he's clearly the security blanket for whoever happens to be playing quarterback. It was Bryce Young in this instance for the Panthers. In comparison, DJ Chark caught 3 balls for 26. Jonathan Mingo caught 2 balls for 21. Obviously, the aerial pie belongs to Adam Thielen.
By a wide margin. We've seen this before, too, with aging veterans. I'm trying to think, like Larry Fitzgerald's a good example where dominant, a really good outside receiver, seemed to be kind of struggling and then gets moved to the slot and just has a resurgence for a year or two. Adam Thielen, he's no Larry Fitzgerald, but we're seeing that kind of similar arc here with him, and it's beautiful to see. And I'll just confess my worst fantasy sin of the year so far after his Week 1 dud. And I had Thielen. He was one of my most owned guys in best ball. He's carrying a lot of teams right now. Love him. I cut him in Week 1 after in my main league. 1 catch, like 6-yard performance. I was like, this offense looks so bad. I thought he was going to be the main vein. Wasn't at all. See you later. Oh, man, if I had him in my league, I might be 5-0 at this point. So I just got to get that off my chest. A heartbreaker. I'm not perfect. That's so sad. Very far from it. Let's put it that way. And certainly Adam Thielen being cut is one of the big glaring concerns of mine right now. Jalen Waddles, 9 targets, 51 yards on 7 catches and a score. Not to be outdone by, of course, Tyreek Hill, though, going for 160, touchdown, 10 catches. Just
did a backflip in the end zone.
Yeah, I think that got flagged for the flip. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, man, he is just so damn good. This offense is so damn good. What a great, unstoppable passing attack.
Talked about Desmond Ridder earlier. Well, he was throwing to Drake London a decent amount. That's a guy that has been really disappointing, I would have to say, up to this point. He got 12 targets. He caught 9 of them for 125 yards. 12 targets tied a career high for him. And the 9 receptions, the 125 yards, also career highs. So I don't know if you're looking for a bright spot here. We have always thought that London had the talent. We were kind of waiting for him to break out. This is a pretty good game.
Yeah, it's really never been an issue with him. It's just a matter of how game specific it is. When they have to throw, they keep the air under the ball. He looks good. He's been targeted before, but nothing like this. Some of those catches, too, huge degree of difficulty, contested grabs, the moves of an alpha. I mean, honestly, you give this team a quarterback that could actually sling it more often, he would be a top 12 potential receiver. So talented. Just can't wait for him to finally get unleashed the right way. Jamar Chase, 6 of 13 targets, just 80 yards, but man, that whopping 37% target share. Yeah. Better days are ahead, and they have the easiest schedule down the stretch run. So I think Chase, if his owner is freaking out at all, or he hasn't had the best of starts. He had that one monster last week. Otherwise, he's been meh. If you can somehow squeak out, I know you're not going to be able to buy low, but buying below what I think the rest of the season will be for him, which is maybe the best player in fantasy, certainly at wide receiver. If you can get him on this bye week and his owner is hurting, definitely try to take a plunge.
Gardner Minshew has played significant minutes, significant snaps in 4 games this year. And in 3 of those games, Michael Pittman has seen at least 11 targets. He got targeted 14 times today, caught 9 of them for 109 yards. So he is the clear number 1 option here, especially when Minshew's in there. But I mean, really all the time, but especially Minshew looks to him more and more and more. They did, of course, lose that game. We talked about that. Josh Downs was second on the team in targets and got the only passing touchdown of the day that Minshew threw. He caught 5 balls for 21.
Yeah. So at least we got in the end zone, kind of bailing you guys out for streamers there, me included. 32% rostered, certainly a guy to be looking at on your waiver wires if he's out there. Brandon Ayuk, 10 targets, 37% share. That's all good. 4 catches, 76 yards. Pretty mediocre. Leaves you wanting more. But with Debo banged up, with McCaffrey banged up, he might be the ultimate vein of this offense for a week or two. So definitely seems like he's trending upwards. The share was there. The production didn't follow. I think better days will be ahead if he gets 10 targets more consistently.
Second time this season, Terry McLaurin was targeted at least 11 times. He was targeted 11 times today, caught 6 of them, 81 yards. Not bad, not amazing, but encouraging that he's getting that many looks from Sam.
Yeah, after last week, that was Logan Thomas seeing the 11 looks. At least we're getting McLaurin as involved as he should be.
Right.
Nico Collins leading the team in receiving, 4 catches, 80 yards, 6 targets. Not exactly a hog day, but good to see him at the top of the leaderboard. No Tank Dell, still getting it done okay. But you'd like to see a little bit more, actually, to be honest.
Take the next one, Wolf. I'll be right back.
Olave gets 10 targets, 7 catches, 96 yards. Just overall seeing the trend upwards for Derek Carr there, 353 yards. The pie is growing as the AC joint heals a bit more, and Olave was back to that main vein of the attack.
Amari Cooper caught 4 balls on 8 targets for 108 yards in the Browns' Week 6 shocking win over the 49ers. And this is a Niners defense that was no joke, and it was also P.J. Walker under center for the Browns.
Yeah.
That's right, P.J. Walker. And I have to admit, I was really pulling for the Browns, and I was really pulling for him, especially after that dipshit Deshaun Watson just didn't play again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know. That was such a great win. And Cooper looking QB-proof. He can get this done with P.J. Walker. Honestly, he's been at his worst when Deshaun Watson's playing. It just goes to show Walker wouldn't ruin Cooper if we have to lean on this for future games. And I said that in the broadcast today. Glad to see it. It ultimately came through for you folks. 8 targets for Tyler Lockett, 6 of them for 94 yards. The guy is just sitting and churning and continuing to go. DK Metcalf did out-target him with 10, but he was far less productive with just 4 catches, 69 yards. He had a tough hit on his hip that was already injured entering the game. He had to go off the field for a bit, came back in, and it did not seem overly limited, but just something to monitor. He has been a little dinged up throughout the year.
We've just had kickoff in Buffalo. We probably got about 10 more minutes of material, guys. We're going to finish up the wide receivers, tight ends real fast. Wolf's going to throw a little bit of a early waiver action at you. I am watching the game here. I'm sure all of you can see the game also if you want to. But if you're still going to hang with us for the next 10 or so, we sure do appreciate it. I got to say, I thought that DK, he caught 4 balls for 69 in that game. Every time I was watching, it seemed like he was catching the ball. It's to me, it seemed like he had like 120 yards, and just like alpha dogging guys all the time. So that I'm surprised to see his numbers were that low.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk, who's become just a real steady, reliable fantasy guy. I mean, I have him in my starting lineup. I've rolled him out the last couple of weeks. I caught 3 balls for 49 yards and a touchdown. Okay, I'll take that. Yeah. I'm wide receiver light. I'll start that guy, gets me 12 points. I was happy with it. Cool. He was out targeted by Ingram and Ridley, but I mean, he made it into the end zone again. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel, 4 catches, 42 yards and a score. Back-to-back day. This is his 3rd straight useful day, 3rd straight day with a touchdown. The guy just getting it done over the middle of the field. Howell has clear trust in him. He's probably what we were hoping Jahan Dotson was going to be, who is certainly one of the biggest followers on this list and just in the NFL. But Curtis Samuel, a riser within Dotson's just complete plummeting here.
All right, going to the duds. We talked about every manner of the Vikings team sucking, so we might as well talk about the receivers specifically. You and I had
they won too. So if you're a Vikings fan, watching it, we're talking about the team. They won. We get it. Just fantasy wise, what a disappointment compared to what we're used to.
Well, it reminds me of a couple weeks ago when we were talking about all those insane numbers from Devin Achane, and then we were like, oh, by the way, the Dolphins got blown out in that game.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Vikings pass game. So you and I, one of our disagreements we had on Thursday, it was a mild disagreement, but we didn't agree on this. I said I liked Osborne more than Jordan Addison. Well, the answer was they both were pretty bad. I think that you would have ended up going with Addison. You would have gotten a couple more points because he did get into the end zone. But here's their staggering stat lines. Addison caught 3 balls for 28 and a touchdown. Osborne caught 4 balls for 48. So it's not like either one of us was setting the world on fire with these picks. Addison did have a slightly better fantasy game. Brandon Powell also caught 3 balls for 20 yards. So, nothing to be too happy about if you're a Vikings fan. And again, they won. They
won, but just a fantasy fan of the Vikings, not to enjoy. We did see TJ Hawkinson lead the way with 8 targets, 6 catches, 50 yards. Even he kind of underwhelmed as the target leader there. And as mentioned, Alexander Madison's 7 targets were actually second on the team, which is another reason to be a little bit worried about this post-Justin Jefferson attack. It was only 1 game, but it also was against a pretty weak secondary of the Bears. So something to just be a little bit hesitant there. T. Higgins, we kind of mentioned, one of the worst picks of the year so far. 2 catches, 20 yards, 4 targets. Not really a decoy, but not really a great full-time role either. Just the buy is here. Let's hope he's better, but I'm not trying to buy lower. And this just feels like a cursed player this year that I'm not trying to have any piece of right now.
I mean, DJ Moore had 5 balls on 8 targets for 51 yards. Most of his damage came, and it's not much damage, but most of his damage did come in the 4th quarter when Tyson Bagent. Is that how it's pronounced? Bagent?
I don't even know.
Anyway, well, he came in when Justin Fields got injured. Not ideal, maybe playing for a backup rookie quarterback, but it's not like he was doing anything with Fields in this game. I mean, they did have one or two big connection games this year, but let's face it, overall, DJ Moore has been pretty disappointing, but he did have that one just insane fantasy game that's elevated his numbers for the year.
Well, he had 2 in a row, and that's why I kind of put him on the ball. He had like 25 and then 45. They like back-to-back weeks. It was looking like this offense was finally finding its stride. It just as a whole, the entire offense taking a massive step back, including.
I mean, those were the ones, right? Well, Fields has had 2 games too. They're the same games,
exactly.
Right. And so, I mean, they're tied together. I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately for sure. Calvin Ridley just 4 catches, 30 yards, 8 targets, led the way on the team, but very weak production in a very burnable matchup. We just saw DeAndre Hopkins putting up 150 yards and 11 catches against this Indianapolis secondary. So we wanted a lot more from Calvin Ridley. It doesn't seem like he's going to be a true bona fide wide receiver 1, more like a middling wide receiver 2 at best, and consistent. Kirk's been the one that's really been actually steady for this offense for the majority of the year. So definitely disappointing effort for Calvin Ridley despite pacing the team in looks.
Yeah, I really liked Ridley in the preseason too, but right now I think I'd probably rather have Kirk. Elijah Moore, time to cut him. 4 balls on 7 targets for 19 yards. That's all I got to say. I mean, he was second on the team in targets behind Amari Cooper. He put up 19 yards. I think I'm done with this guy.
There's no reason to keep holding this guy. I cut him a while ago, about 3 weeks ago, but he's still about 45% rostered. No, waste of space. As is Jahan Dotson, 70% rostered. Time for him to kick to the dirt. No catches, 1 target. Should have caught it. It was right there for him. He had all the field in front of him. It would have been a long touchdown, and he should have had it. He just looks completely lost out there, not looking well. And I mentioned Mike Evans. I benched him for I benched Derrick Henry for him. Did not come through for me. 4 catches, 49 yards on 10 targets. That was not the right play. Godwin ended up outproducing him. 6 catches, 77 yards on 7 looks there, though. So Evans led the way in looks, but ultimately Godwin did more damage with him.
2 injuries on the wide receivers, one a lot more significant than the other. Deebo Samuel was ruled out of the game against the Browns. He was injured, shoulder injury, and they say that it's not too serious. So hopefully we'll see Deebo back right away. Obviously, losing him as a weapon, losing McCaffrey as a weapon, having every possible thing go wrong, and then they still lost by only 2 points to the Browns. The Niners will be okay, and it seems like this injury is not too bad. Alec Pierce also got knocked out of the game with the Jaguars with a shoulder injury. We don't have much more information on that yet.
No, not at all. Let's move to the tight ends, wrapping up risers, fallers, studs, and injuries. We got Kyle Pitts. Yeah, we've bashed this guy enough. Now back-to-back weeks, 6 targets, 4 catches, 43 yards, a score. Not to be outdone, John, who they're coexisting here, also had 5 targets, 4 catches, 36, and a touchdown. It's going to be sketchy. We don't know that we can consistently rely on it. It requires them to be playing from behind. But we're at least seeing that when they are behind and when they have to throw, at least there is going to be something there. It's just a matter of how are the games going to flow for them. Today it worked out well, and both these guys coexisted. And I do think you can feel better about starting either one of them, including Pitts, moving forward.
Dalton Schultz took advantage of the fact that Nico Collins was locked in a battle with Marshawn Lattimore. He caught 4 balls on 7 targets for 61 yards and a touchdown. We've seen how low the bar is for tight end production in fantasy this year. This qualifies as a monster game.
Yeah, 3 straight weeks now with quality stats for Dalton Schultz. I think he could be an every week starter. He's about 50% rostered, so check your leagues there. In terms of followers, we mentioned that Hawkinson a little disappointing as the main vein. 50 yards on 6 catches. Even more disappointing was George Kittle. 1 catch, 2 targets, 1 yard. The worst day he's ever had in his career as a starter. Tough sledding for George Kittle today, and tough for the next guy on this list.
Yeah, Logan Thomas. He caught 1 ball for 2 yards.
Doubled up Kittle.
Well, right. I was going to say very similar. I also just want to say, Hawkinson was a little disappointing. I think it's doing a real disservice to the guy to call him a disappointment and then call George Kittle a disappointment. One of them caught 1 ball for 1 yard.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just
heartbreak. It's
terrible. Just terrible. Anyway, that does it for tight ends. You want to talk about a couple of these line injuries before we go on and hit some waiver guys?
Yeah, and the 4 p.m. box score will quickly scan as well. But Trent Williams did go down, as did Lane Johnson, 2 of the most important tackles in football. We saw how much under pressure Jalen Hurts was, Brock Purdy was, both those guys. 2 of the biggest upsets of the day. I'm not saying the tackles were the key only reason for the loss, but they were definitely getting higher pressure rates without their two stalwart tackles there. So certainly worth noting there, how depending on how long that will linger. Moving to the 4 p.m. box scores. And as we said, Wolfpack, this is right after those games wrap up, so we don't have the exact snap counts, some of that usage that we were talking about. We just wanted to make some notes of anything that stood out from these 4 p.m. games. So just quickly first looking at the Rams and Cardinals games, I thought Keontae Ingram playing far more work than everybody's going to Amari DeMarcado. Everyone thought he was going to be the prize waiver wire possession. Keontae was the starter. He got the carries, 10 carries, 40 yards, didn't do a whole ton with it. But certainly, I don't know what the exact snaps will be. He definitely was the lead back here, though. 2 catches for 11 yards as well. Just 3 touches for DeMarcado. Definitely a disappointing performance for him. Hopefully you did not stream him. I said they go to Sullivan Ahmed instead of either of these guys. That did end up being the right play. In the receiving game, it is worth noting Michael Wilson. We'll talk about him with the waivers as well, but leading the team with 3 catches, 62 yards on his 4 targets. Marquise Brown, definitely a disappointing effort with 4 catches, 34 yards. And then Trey McBride outproducing Zach Ertz. Maybe there's a shifting of the guard here. McBride definitely has more juice as a player. 4 catches, 62 yards, committed just 2 for 22. So definitely disappointing for Ertz there if you were starting him. And then on the Rams side, Kyron Williams, what a monster day. 20 carries, 158 yards, and a touchdown. And he only had I think he had like under a point in the first half. He really lit it up in the second half. They let him go, and man, did he thrive. This was one of the first times I really got to watch him extensively, and I loved what I saw. He is a hard-nosed runner, very good fit for the zone scheme. Cooper Kupp, though, 7 catches, 148 yards, and a touchdown.
Can we talk about him for a second? Like, how good is he? He's so good. I mean, so he just is. He's been back for 2 games, and what did he go, like 8 for 118 last week? And what did you say, 7 for $148 and a touchdown? Yeah. He's so good. Like, we talk about, Tyreek's the best receiver in the league, or like sometimes we'll say, it's Jamar Chase or it's Justin Jefferson. I've never wavered from if he's healthy, it's Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
like
these days.
I just think he is. I think he is.
So at least in terms of fantasy production reliability, if I'm building a franchise, I probably would rather have Tyreek or Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp. But
all I'm saying is when he's healthy, I don't think there's a better wide receiver than him. I'm not saying I wouldn't take those guys over him if I were actually starting a team. I would. But
yeah, he could easily from this point on be the best receiver in fantasy, especially with Jefferson's injury. There's no doubt about that. It did come at the expense of Puka. Last week they coexisted perfectly. 4 catches, 26 yards, 7 targets for second high on the team, but a little concerning downturn. I'm a Puka owner here. I'm a Puka stan. I would be trying to buy low, though. I do think they'll coexist better than this. The looks were there for Puka. They just barely missed on a couple, especially 1 touchdown look. So he could get there. A.J. Brown, 130, moving to the Eagles, losing to the Jets 14-20. A.J. Brown, 131 yards on 7 catches. That's now his 4th straight game with at least 125 yards. Whew, this guy's an absolute stud. And again, came at the expense of Devonta Smith. We were higher, lower, Hail Mary. He was our lower. Look, even with a banged-up Jet secondary. Didn't do a ton. 5 catches, 44 yards. Swift was pretty disappointing today. 10 carries for 17 yards, really but he did get involved as a receiver. 8 catches, 41 yards, did score as well. So he bailed himself out with the receiving usage. It's honestly awesome to see, as down as it was as a rushing performance for him, to see that he could also buoy the value out with a receiving game. He's locked in RB1 every single week. Great to see that. We did get Gainwell getting mixed in a little bit there, but not to a overly concerning rate. So that was my takeaways from this Eagles team. Jalen Hurts, even on a bad-looking day, overall 3 picks, he still was the number 2 quarterback in fantasy as of right now. Goff, the only quarterback outscoring him. So it goes to show you how damn he can be bad and he'll still be great in fantasy. Unlike Zach Wilson, who can just be bad and always be bad, but yeah, he let it win. So why should I dump on him? 8 targets, 12 targets, 8 catches for Garrett Wilson. That's I believe he's averaging 11 targets a game, maybe even more than that after this performance. 90 yards on it. So he has been actually Zach Wilson proof this year. A very hard thing to do. He's playing well.
I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that Zach Wilson's good. I'm not going to do that. But I do just want to say, just in a vacuum, they're 3-3. They've beaten the Bills and they've beaten the Eagles.
Yeah.
So and they lost to the Chiefs like 23-20.
They could have beat the Chiefs on Sunday.
They could have beat the Chiefs. Look at their resume. They played like the best 3 teams, arguably. I mean, other than maybe the 49ers in the NFL. and they beat 2 of them, and they should have probably beaten the third one. And Zach Wilson's been their starting quarterback every single game. How good is that defense, huh?
It's really what it is, the defense. But he's at least playing serviceable. He's not killing them with bad turnovers and ruining the field position game. He's playing smarter ball, and he's slinging it out better, and at least he's getting it. Garrett Wilson, as well as Breece Hall, who dominated the workload yet again. 12 carries, 39, a touchdown, but also 5 catches, 54 yards through the air. You'll love to see him getting used that way. The true 3-down back he is. Just a great, another encouraging feather. A great defense that he's facing there. The Eagles to be a top 10 running back against them. He was one of our higher, lower Hail Marys, definitely came through for us. We mentioned Ramondre and Zeke both scoring touchdowns. Zeke almost having a huge day with a 75-yarder called back. The big other takeaway for the Pats, though, is 10 catches on 11 targets for Kendrick Bourne. He has had a special relationship with Mac. I just don't know how long Mac's going to be lasting here. I wonder if he's going to get benched at this point. But it was good to see Kendrick Bourne regaining that value that we saw in week 1, where he dominated. Really nobody else close to him. The next closest guy was Stevenson with 6 targets. All the other receivers just complete and distant. There's Hunter Henry, we thought could be a reliable tight end. 1 catch, 7 yards, 3 targets. Nothing else other than Kendrick Bourne, Ramondre here. And even then, it's pretty thin. You don't want pieces of this offense typically. And we mentioned Garoppolo got hurt. Jacobs, 25 carries, 77 yards. He's been an absolute workhorse this year, but he's been so damn inefficient. Those long runs, not there as they had been the years past. This week, 2 catches, 16 yards. We had been getting better receiving involvement for Jacobs. Just a ho-hum med day for him. And really the entire offense. 5 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown for Myers. The big thing is, again, outproducing Devontae Adams, who had just 5 targets, 2 catches, 29 yards, 7 targets for Myers, leading the way. Not typically what you see. Even Michael Mayer actually out-targeting Devontae Adams. 6 targets for him. 5 catches, 75 yards. A talented kid, rookie there out of Notre Dame. He should be on that waiver wire list too. So Michael Mayer, a guy to keep your eyes on as well. Oh, and then the Lions Ducks. I guess we quickly mentioned already, David Montgomery got hurt. Craig Reynolds did not do much. 10 carries, 15 yards, no scores, but did haul in 2 catches for 28 yards. Could be a viable streamer given how good this offense is. It was more so just the Jared Goff show. Right now, the highest scoring quarterback, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them to Amon-Ra St. Brown, 15 targets, 12 catches, 124 yards, and a score. And then Jamison Williams hauling in a 45-yard bomb. Great to see him come into life. It could be the springboard. He had some nice run blocking too. That's something Dan Campbell get really fired up about. Could see him really quickly demanding that every down role. We did see him get the same amount of targets as Josh Reynolds, 3 catches for 50 yards. The other big takeaway, he's not going to show up fantasy scoring wise. Laporta, just 4 catches, 36 yards, but a whopping 11 targets. Yeah, I hate that he didn't do more with them, but if you see your tight end getting 11 targets, you can't feel too bad about it, even though the day was not huge for him.
All right, let's get into the waiver wire real quick. It's 8:40 right now. About 9.5 minutes to go in the Buffalo Giants first quarter. It is scoreless right now. Jordan Mason at 5%, Eli Mitchell at 28%. The reason those guys are on the list is pretty obvious with the oblique injury to Christian McCaffrey. We don't know how serious it's going to be. We don't know if he's going to miss time. If he is going to miss time, we don't know how much that's going to be. But you introduced me to the term of value holes. San Francisco running back is obviously like a major league value hole. These are the guys most likely to be filling it if McCaffrey misses any sort of significant amount of time. So obviously, take a stab at one of these guys if you think, just take a stab, roll the dice, see what you can do. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah, we'll definitely have more info on Tuesday. I go live 7 p.m. Come to that waiver wire show where we'll get a little bit of a better sense of what McCaffrey's status is. It does seem like Mason, the one you want here, he played 15 snaps after the injury compared to just 2 for Eli Mitchell. He definitely ran better as well. 5 carries for 27 yards and a touchdown. This is back-to-back weeks here for Jordan Mason with a score. The first time, though, we've seen him play significantly ahead of Eli Mitchell, here in Mason. A 92.5 PFF grade over these last 2 seasons. I know it's been limited work, but he's been really impressive. He's a favorite of Grant Cohen, one of our guys, the beat writer there for the 49ers. So I really like Jordan Mason. If he's going to be the lead back here, it's looking like if McCaffrey's going to miss any time, it's his job to have. After him, though, the next guy on my list would be Kareem Hunt. He's 36% rostered, 12 carries, 47 yards, and a score, running hard, looking solid. The line in general blowing this 49ers impressive front 7 off the ball. So great to see this team regaining what they do best. 3 catches for 24 yards as well for Kareem Hunt. The other guy back you want to look at is potentially Keontae Ingram. He clearly started ahead of Amari DeMarcado. He had 12 touches compared to just 3 for DeMarcado, only 20% rostered. So the reports of him being ahead on the depth chart for Keontae Ingram were very, very much true. So definitely something to check there if he's out there in your league getting a starting running back. But an offense that's not great, but certainly can ride a workhorse. You could do worse as a plug-in streamer. Maybe Craig Reynolds also a streamer as well, 1% rostered here. It ultimately comes down to what David Montgomery's status is, but we know they're not going to want to turn the keys completely over to Gibbs, even if he is back and Montgomery's out, and there's a chance both of them are out, in which case Craig Reynolds would be a top end running back too, potentially. The guy has gotten it done when he gets used, so something to consider there. Those are all the running backs we have on our early waiver wire list. Do you want me to just keep ripping through them, Truth?
Yeah, run the next few. I'll be right back. I got to go take care of something real fast. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Sounds good. JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 48% rostered. There's a decent chance he's not out there in your league, although in some of the competitive leagues I'm in, I've seen him dropped. He had the bye week last week, had done nothing yet, the lowest ADOT in the league. Not a huge day today. Ultimately, had 5 targets, 4 catches, 48. It's his best professional day, though, so far, and 52 snaps compared to 57 for Metcalf, 56 for Lockett. He was the big thing out there for 39 of the 42 routes. He tied Lockett and Metcalf for route share. So it was clear they schemed him up more for coming out of the bye. He didn't do much to disappoint him, too. Again, 8 yards, 4 catches, his best day. Could potentially had a touchdown mixed in there. So it's tough to toss him in quite yet, but great to see that JSN is playing right now. And if anything happened to either of those lead guys, could be a monster. For now, it's a tough target share to contend with, but I still believe in the talent. Remember, this guy outplayed, outproduced Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson on the same team. Rashid Shaheed, 85 yards, touchdown, big play threat, 2 catches, 6 targets. It's just 3 straight weeks now with 6 or more targets. It doesn't get a ton of the balls hauled in, but when he does, it seems to be a big play. As we said, 350 yards for Derek Carr. The passing pie is bigger and growing here with him getting healthier, Derek Carr. And Shaheed's been a big part of it. 62 of the possible 75 snaps there. So he is close to an every down player. Behind, of course, Thomas and Olave, but the big play threat here looking solid there for that. That was Rashid Shaheed. I'm moving the banners here. Michael Wilson leading the team in receiving, 4 targets, 3 catches, 62 yards, dropped by a lot of people after last week's dud. Still think there's a chance Marquise Brown gets moved at the trade deadline. Either way, we know Wilson has it carved out a role. He's about an every snap player today. He can get done over the middle of the field, deep down the sideline, and we've seen 2 touchdown days out of the kid. So if he got dropped by an impatient owner, still think he is well worth rostering. And then at tight end, we mentioned Trey McBride taking over for Zach Ertz, who is a big faller this week. 4 catches, 62 yards, and 5 targets for Trey McBride. Looking very, very solid out there and wanted to toss out again. We're talking about another rookie tight end. Ultimately, Michael Mayer there for the Raiders. 6 targets, 5 catches, 75 yards, a team high in yardage. Big 32-yard catch, making tackles, breaking tackles, looking great after the reception, just like he did with Notre Dame. So big stuff there for Michael Mayer. Nice week as well. And then the last one to toss out there is quarterback Gardner Minshew. If you're in a 2 QB league or need a bye week fill-in, wasn't pretty, but he did throw the ball a whopping 55 times, 33 completions for 329 yards, 1 score. The 3 picks were gross. Can't say it was pretty. He took a bunch of sacks, a lot of them, including 1 fumble on those. It just were his fault. He was holding the ball too long. But they ultimately, what we were hoping to see, they kept the pedal to the metal. They kept the pace flying around, and 55 pass attempts is no joke. The defense continues to blow as well, so we know they're going to have to chuck and keep pace with other people. Good to see Minshew. If you're desperate for a QB, you lost Anthony Richardson, who's likely to be out for the year, is the latest report here. Another reason why Minshew's on this list. You can do worse than a team running the 4th most plays in the NFL, passing the ball right now at top 5 over expectation rate too. Minshew's got the weapons. He's got the arm. There'll be better days ahead, in my opinion.
That's it, right?
That's all of it. Wolfpack, RoadStreetJournal.com is where you can find all our recap. I'll update the rest of the season big board tomorrow. I'll have my week 7 rankings out there for you by tomorrow night, by kickoff of the Monday night game is always my goal. CJ will have the early waiver wire clips out, the article out there as well, but you can check out all that content again at RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fancy wolves. On your way out, the thumbs up button would be so greatly appreciated. If you liked what you heard today, you found it helpful, I'll be glad to dive into these waiver wire picks in even more detail Tuesday rather. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Find me there. I'll go in more depth. I'll answer all your questions about it, Wolfpack. But thank you again so much for being here with us. I know we got some angry people, T. Higgins. We got a lot of people bemoaning some of our people, but we also got people saying Kyron freaking Williams, boys. I love the chat, getting after it today. Good stuff. We'll be taking all those questions again on Tuesday. That's where we go. Wellness check on Denny Jennings from David Campanelli. Comment of the night. I hope you're okay out there, Denny Jennings, wherever you are. I'm sure you're drunk, and deservedly so after that horrible loss. Wellness check indeed. In a world for the Fancy Sheep, guys, be the wolf. Thanks again so much. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Later.